Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we are reviewing Transformers Age of the Primes, the 13 Nexus Prime. This figure I just got today at my local GameStop. I am honestly not the most impressed with how this alt mode looks. It's fine, it does something. It's very clearly not aerodynamic. Just looking at this thing, it's very clear that flying is not this thing's strong suit in the slightest. And I can't help but just say I'm kind of disappointed with how this looks. I expected something a little more impressive from Nexus Prime, the prime of combination. I expect something a little more impressive out of this figure. But we didn't get that. I'm disappointed with this. Alt mode wise, everything else I like. Alt mode wise though, I'm very disappointed with this. It's just a very ugly and gappy rectangle. I am not pleased in the slightest. Besides that though, everything else of this figure is quite good. But before we get into any of that, let's get into size comparisons, because I don't really want to talk about this alt mode at all. There's nothing even remotely interesting about this. So, yeah. With that all being said, comparison time, and then we'll talk about what I actually like. So, Voyager class Nexus compared to Deluxe class Quintus. Comparing the two figures, they look quite interesting. Prime on prime here. I like it. Looks nice. Next up is Voyager class Legacy United Vector Prime. Obviously, he's missing the wings because my copy didn't come with them, as y'all know, which is very frustrating. I still haven't bought the upgrade kit so I can get those wings. But I do plan on it still. So, holding out for that. And finally, Leader Class, Megatronus. Getting them all on the turntable, they look quite nice. I like how he looks with everyone. So, yeah. Now, before we get into anything with the robot mode, we're going to go into the combined mode stuff right now, since it's just more convenient. And I don't really have much time to talk about everything. Well, I have time to talk about stuff in depth. I just also don't feel like transforming this guy to robot, then back to combine. So we're going in a bit of a weird order. So, yeah. Just letting you all know. Weird order today, but we're just doing that. So the first thing you want to do is take these gun wings off. These are parts forming pieces, which kind of blows, but they're decent looking guns, so I don't mind too much. But it does suck that, if you take those off or you lose those, this thing just loses much more depth already. You take the Enigma of combination off, you lose even more detail, and you just get left with this really dull break. But we're going to plug that back in for now. We'll talk about this and the guns more in robot mode. So for the time being, we'll see you later. So, after you take those off, the first thing you want to do is untab these from the sides, like so. Shift up the... Oh, did not mean to untab everything there. Shift up these blue pieces, just kind of straight up. Then rotate these upward, like so. And collapse them like you're going to do it, or transform them back to robot mode. So kind of like this. Rotate the forearms so these tabs are facing this way, because they'll be plugging into the chest. Then before you do anything else, you want to take this whole assembly here, fold it down, and hinge it upward. Then there's a slot right here that tabs everything together, like so. Same thing on the other side. Then there's these tabs right here, and then some slots on the foot right there that you just want to collapse in, just like that. Repeat the same thing on the other side, and collapse that there. Now, before you take anything else or combine him with the Superion's combiner frame, you want to take these gun wings and plug them into the 5mm ports on the inside of Nexus Prime's wrists, or forearms. And this here is the combined mode of Nexus Prime. A lot of people are confused on whether it should be this way or this way because of how it plugs on to Superion. I genuinely prefer this way's appearance, but this is just how it is right now. So yeah. Alrighty, I'm back. Sorry for the sudden pause and just kind of, jutting. My aunt called. She needed help with something. And when someone calls you while you're recording, the recording just kind of stops and pauses itself. So yeah, we're back though, so let's do this. So, with Nexus Prime, he is not compatible with any other combiner frame besides, we'll push you out of the way, Superion. There we go. Have to adjust the camera. The Superion frame connects in a few ways. We have this way, or I guess it connects in one way, but your display option of it is unique. Or you have two options on how you want to display it. These two slots right here, or these two tabs here and here, go into these slots here and here. Then these two square tabs right here and here go into these square slots right here and here. Then there's two slots right here on the crotch section, both opposite to each other, that go onto these tabs. So you want to tab them in, just like so, and then collapse everything together, just like that. Then before you kind of mess with him and lock the arms in, there's this port right here that goes into this slot, or this port that goes into this tab, or the other way around. You were picking up what I was putting down. Then you just put that in. One thing that I don't like, if you have a display like this, is you can't really see the enigma of combination. So what I do is I take this off its hinge and I reverse it, because it's able to sit like that, which looks much nicer and is much more pleasing to the eye. That's if you have it displayed like this, though. So it's a personal preference thing. Then obviously, if you have it displayed like this, you take your arms, you plug them in on the sides, just like so, and bam, there's your Nexus Prime combiner frame, looking all nice and dandy. Now, obviously, I can't have it like that for the official reasons. Okay, I'm back again. I say, my little brother stole this while I was doing something for my grandpa. We're back, though. That's, lovely. But yeah, this isn't my preferred way of showing off Nexus, as it just doesn't look as good. This looks like real messy, So what I like to do is I like to angle these wings back, rotate the waist to where it's the front, then have this option. Now, granted, this option isn't perfect either, as it doesn't match the color scheme, but I like the more kind of clean and more cohesive-esque design that we have. Granted, that's probably the G1 fan inside of me speaking, as when I was a kid, G1 and RAD 2015 are the lines I grew up with. 2015 was definitely much more of a more unique design aesthetic, but G1 was, the blocky, the smooth, all of this. Granted, I grew up with Bayverse as well, but not to the same degree as G1 and 2015. So I got more used to these smoother, rounder, kind of blockier designs. So, for me, it makes more sense on why I'd prefer this over this appearance back here. It's cool, don't get me wrong, it's sick looking. I just don't prefer this over this. And since this is just a combiner core bot, nothing changes articulation-wise when it comes to the Superion body. So, sorry to say if I disappoint you with that, just nothing here changes. So, yeah. But with that all being said, let's dismantle Nexus Prime's frame so far. I don't really know if I'm going to buy the the official Nexus Prime frame. It's cool looking, don't get me wrong, it's neat. But I think I might go for that one upgrade kits. Not the DK ones, or DNA designs, that's what it is. Not the DNA design ones. I don't really like DNA design too much. They charge a lot of money, and as you all know, I don't have a lot of money. The only reason why I got this was because I had a bunch of GameStop coupons saved up. So, you know, hooray! Now, we're going to convert this back to the jet mode, so I can show you how to properly transform this back. As the instructions don't officially show you this design, this is shown off by one of the designers. Can't remember his name. Forgive me. I've completely forgotten. I am sorry, community. I'm just terrible with names. A face? Oh, I can recognize a face. Name? You know. So yeah, we're going to transform this guy back to alt mode. I'll do that off camera though, so I don't bore you guys. So, see you guys in a minute. Goodbye. Alrighty, and got him transformed. You know, looking at this even longer does not help the case that I just don't like how this looks in the slightest. Everything else, I like. This, not really. The sculpt work is nice, I'll give him that. Beautiful sculpt working, as always. Underside, you know. Little ugly. But solid enough, I suppose. I suppose it's solid enough. But, you know, it's not... This does not please my eyes in the slightest. I wish I could scoop my eyes out when I... Well, maybe that's a little extreme. But this is not a good alt mode. It's just a rectangle. But I didn't bring it back to alt mode just to crap on it more. We all know this alt mode's bad. If you've been in this community for any amount of time since this guy got revealed, you know this alt mode is just bad. But we're not here to talk about community stuff. We're here to talk about the figure! You know, woo. So let's do that. So the first thing you want to do for this transformation is just take every accessory off. You could keep the Enigma of combination, but I do want to go over that in robot mode. So we will. Obviously, you know, these have to parts form, as these black pieces here are going to form the feet. So, you know, we can't have those in the way. Not in the way of the feet. But yeah. So, most of it's pretty much very similar to how we just do the combiner frame. You know, you unpeg these, but instead of moving them inward, you want to move them downward, and just like that, pretty much. That's all you do for the feet. Then out here, you just pull out and collapse, like I was talking about earlier. And then you rotate the forearm and bicep till it looks like this. You want the hand to be facing the same direction as this blue piece. Not blue. That is definitely not blue. This red piece. And you just do the same thing on this side. Just like so. Next thing you want to do is kind of lift these up a bit so you untab them from the red pieces. Then once you do that, you just want to pull out the red pieces. Then rotate here at the hip. Then rotate the thigh till it looks like this. So rotate hip, straighten out, rotate thigh, just like this. Then these red pieces at the front of the shins, you want to untab and flip around so they fill in this massive gap that would be here if you didn't have that. Now it's just this, I mean, it's still a pretty large gap, but, you know, you can't see it from the front. And actually at a few other angles, it's only once you have this, like, massively turned that you'll actually see this. So I suppose the gap is not the biggest issue. Not a huge fan of this just being a gap, though. Maybe they could have... Don't know who's yelling out there. Maybe you could put, like, a hinge that could go over and close up this gap, but, you know, I'm not the designer, I'm not the engineer behind it, so I can't really say anything. But once you have the lower half and you have this upper half, just rotate the entire upper half here. Then lift this nose cone section up and then pull this piece back. This will give us enough clearance to grab the head and then bring these back, as these blue tabs right here are going to slot in here just to secure everything nicely. Just like this. Collapse, then collapse all this. And now we can get into the accessory stuff, like these. A lot of people do this, as this is stock configuration. for where you're supposed to put these. And I do have them here. The only thing that I change up is I prefer to have them like this. Kind of like over-the-shoulder cannons. Looks a little more sleek to me. Then you take this, you can plug it into his hand, or you can just leave it in the nose cone. I'm not going to do that, though, as I do want to talk about this. As out of most of these Prime artifacts, I feel like the Enigma of Combination is probably one of the more well-portrayed artifacts in media, and just overall with how this looks. The Enigma of Combination was something that we saw in the Prime Wars trilogy, back in that animated show. Show sucked, but they had a few pretty good designs. Not a huge fan of that Megatronus, though. It reminded me a lot of Galactus, kinda, with that giant forehead crest. But look at the Enigma here. It's quite nice, actually. I love the paintwork, the sculpt work, and the sigil of Nexus Prime on the inside bulb right there. Looks quite nice. Back of it is a peg system. So it's not an anti-peg, so it's not like, whoa. We not gonna focus, buddy? Come on. There we go. So it's not like these ports here. These are anti-peg ports, or just ports. I call them anti-pegs at times, though, because I think of Lego. Anti-studs is what I think of at times when I hear... Or, yeah, I think of anti-studs whenever I think of the inverse, or the opposite of a peg. Because, you know, we have studs, then anti-studs, so ports, or pegs, then anti-pegs. That being the ports and stuff. That's how I think of this system overall. You could also just plug this in to the forearm, you know, if you don't want it on the back. It's neat. I like it. I like it a lot. It's probably one of my more favorite... Oh, okay, fall over. It's probably one of my more favorite designs of the Prime artifacts. Just purely because of how it looks. It's really appealing to my eyes for some reason. It's eye candy. As I've stated, or a word, or a little phrase, I guess, that I've said before, I love things that I can help but describe as eye candy. Because that's exactly what it is to me. It's just pure and utter eye candy. And I love it. I love it. But it's cool. I like it. Looking at the rest of the figure, you can definitely tell that this is not IDW inspired at all. Heck, if we get the box down... Oh, if we get the box right here, wrong side, it's not inspired by even his box art design in the slightest. I don't like that. I like the box art design a lot. I was hoping we'd get that. And I mean, I guess we kind of did with the combiner head back here. As that's very clearly the box art's head. You know? Comparing the two, that is clearly his head right there. But that's about it. Everything else is just not that. And I guess that's just a little disappointing. Because when I first saw that, I assumed he was going to be a commander class. Or hell, maybe even a Titan class that was just a combiner team released in the Titan price point. Like we did back in Power of the Primes and Combiner Wars with Devastator and Predaking. You know, I thought that's what they were doing. No. We just get this guy, and he's compatible with the Superion frame, which are getting limbots now. I'm not interested in those in the slightest, but they are getting limbots, which is cool. I'm happy that they're giving people an official option. I'm going the third-party way, though. There's a kit that makes him look a little more like his original appearance when he was a... Was he a TFCon? Was the original Nexus Prime figure a TFCon figure, or... BotCon? BotCon. I said that weirdly at first. A BotCon release, TFCon, I think, or one of those subscriptions, the monthly subscription thing where they'd ship you figures through the mail. I wish I was around for those. Those were cool. I liked those a lot, actually. I wish I could have done that. I think Lego did them for a little bit, because I remember getting Lego stuff in the mail. Because I did like a subscription thing when I was much younger. Because as y'all know, I was a Lego I was a Lego kid first. Then I got into Transformers stuff thanks to my grandmother. That really got me to Transformers. But as y'all know, Leader Class Dark of the Moon Ironhide was my very first. I was introduced to Transformers then and there. But then my grandmother bought me Titans Return Breakaway. And that's when I got addicted. So I'm addicted to robots because of my grandmother. But yes, with all that out of the way, back to our lovely Nexus. This figure's quite nice, actually. The overall design, I like the TF1 appearance. I like it a lot. And this overall appearance is great. I love the way this figure looks. I'm happy they didn't use the TF1's color scheme. It was a good color scheme, but I prefer the original Nexus Prime color scheme. Again, I can't remember how that figure was. Whew. I need to stop stuttering. I can't remember how that figure was released, but I do remember how awesome it looked. And even when I was younger, I wanted that figure immensely. Nowadays, I understand that figure had some QC because of clear plastic, but does not change the fact that it looked gorgeous. So I'm happy this figure took those cues of the color scheme while taking the cues of the Transformers 1 iteration. But then, I don't really see much of the Covenant or the... Oh no, I'm spacing out. No, I don't want to be spacing on the name. Aligned! There it is. The aligned continuity. I don't really see much of the aligned continuity in this figure. Which is quite unfortunate, as that's a design I also really like. And maybe that's where the box art's design comes from, the aligned continuity. As if I remember correctly, the aligned continuity has a pretty close design to this. Also, I just gotta say, I love the gorilla proportions of this figure, or this box art iteration of him. I love the lanky arms and the kind of short and stout legs. I love that. I'm not sure how well that would translate to an actual figure, but I love those kind of wacky proportions of Transformers. Because, yeah, you know, every Transformer is going to look like this. Or, no, every Transformer shouldn't look just like a metal guy. Obviously, clearly isn't a guy. Mostly, you know. It's proportionate. I like disproportionate figures at times. Granted, that doesn't mean give him tiny legs and huge arms, because then that's just way out of proportion. And then he's going to just keep falling over. I want something stable, but wacky. I like wacky figures. Maybe that's why I like those kind of out there colors of the G2 figures. Have I got any? No. I have a hard time finding them. And then when I do find them, I'm broke, so I never buy them. But I like those kind of wacky colors of the G2 Transformers. Am I going to get Menasor? No. But yeah, let's say I like those kind of weird colors, those weird proportions. They're unique. There's something that you don't see too often. But yeah, looking at the rest of this figure, looks nice. The overall head sculpt is absolutely lovely. I love the kind of roundness of it. I love the gold visor. The silver mouth plate looks lovely. I believe the head is sculpted in a black plastic, this kind of darker material here, which would explain why there's kind of more of a darker kind of undertone with this paint. Because as you all know, red is an infamously hard color to paint. You know, these wings, I believe they're molded in blue, painted, the red parts are painted on them, which gives this red paint here this kind of purplish tint. Granted, it's not too noticeable in person, but when you're comparing the paint to the plastic, it is a slightly darker tint because of the blue that's painted on. And I'm assuming this head's either sculpted in blue or black plastic. Probably black, just because the black plastic is kind of used all over this figure. Here, this entire back section right here. So, you know, that's pretty cool. But yeah, the overall design is... Sorry, I had to go do something. Now, back to this figure. The overall design is quite nice. I like this kind of gunmetal gray that we have going. This overall gunmetal gray plastic is nice. I would have preferred the brighter silver that this box shows, though. Like, that is very clearly the silver that matches this waist. But then comparing it, it's like, oh, where's the figure that I saw in the box, you know? I'm not sure if this is a render or an official figure product, or like an official product being shown off here. But if there's an official Nexus out there that has this silver on it, that then I'd like that. But that being said, looking at the rest of this figure here, we have a lot more of these kind of silver and gold pods on the figure, one on each major component of the body. We have all gold on the shins and just leg components of the limbs. We have gold and silver on the forearms and just arm of the figure. Then we have this larger, I guess, kind of light spotlight kind of component, maybe. I'm not exactly sure of the name. But we have this larger piece right here on the chest. And looking at the overall figure, he is sculpted beautifully. This is a very beautiful figure sculpt-wise. Looking at the overall figure, it's nice. It's mostly solid. This does not tab in. I'm not sure if this is supposed to. It just doesn't on my copy. So if it's not supposed to, please let me know. If it is, then something just does not want to tab in. I've tried. I don't want to force it, as this figure has stretch marks coming out of the box right back here. Let's see. Yeah, right there. Yeah, that's not good. But looking at this figure, it's excuse me, sorry. This figure's solid. You know, the robot mode's nice, it looks lovely. The colors are good. There's nothing much to complain about the robot mode. The head sculpt's nice, the overall sculpting just over this entire figure is great. Thighs are sculpted beautifully, shins are sculpted nicely. The midsection has this nice coat of silver paint that I wish this figure had more of, like the box art, as I was mentioning earlier. But it looks good. The overall figure looks perfect. Well, maybe not perfect, but it looks great. I'm very happy with how this robot mode has come out. And the combined mode is solid enough for the time being. If we get more looks at this, if we get a frame just for this, maybe I will go for the official Hasbro one. But until then, I'm going to go for that third-party option. So, yeah. But with that all being said, let's go into our articulation, size comparison, then final thoughts. Figure has your basic points. Head can look up this far, down this far, side to side, and full 360 as the head is on a ball joint. Arms can go up this, or I guess out this far, down this far, all the way around, you know, woo! 360 rotation at the biceps. Elbow bends, looks like, yeah, slightly under 90. The wrist swivel on my figure does not want to go anywhere close to this way, or, yeah, this way, but they don't mind going down, so I suppose it's better than nothing. Figure has a 360 rotation at the waist, just like so. Legs can go back that far, forward that far. If you remove the Enigma of oh, okay, I dropped it. If you remove the Enigma, though, legs can go further back. Legs can go out that far, 360 rotation at the thigh, and I want to say that's slightly past 90. Then an extreme ankle pivot, just like so. Grabbing this, though, plugging that in right there, then collapsing that all downward like that. And, yeah. Nexus Prime, looking as lovely as ever. Now, let's place you down, like so. As Nexus is a Voyager, I might have said he was a deluxe class earlier. If I did, my apologies. I did not mean to. I don't know why I was thinking he was a deluxe. He is not. He is a Voyager. Now, for deluxe class figure, though, we'll bring in Quintus Prime. For Voyager class, we'll bring in Vector Prime. And for leader class, Megatronus. Getting all three size classes of our primes in here. First of all, just comparing Nexus to some of the other primes, he looks gorgeous. I love this. He looks very pleasing to me. I love these colors. They look real nice. It's, as I've stated earlier, eye candy. He is great eye candy for me. I'm loving it. No, But yeah, he looks great. I have no complaints with his size, actually, which is quite odd to say, but yeah, I'd say he scales surprisingly well in base figure mode like this. Obviously, you know, if we get the combined mode, he's obviously going to be, well, combiner size, But until we get a full look at what a possible frame from the official designers may look like, I'm not going to say anything about Combiner Mode's scaling until we get his own frame. And if we don't, then, we'll use Superion as our base, as expected. But yes, this figure looks good. I'm happy with how he scales. And for final thoughts, this figure, for as good as it is definitely not worth the scalper prices. I would be hesitant to say he's even worth modern day Voyager prices. As you know, local GameStop meant paying this. As stated, I had coupons, so I paid retail Voyager for this. Old Voyager. So 35 to 37, which is nice. I'm happy with that. I would not suggest paying more than modern Voyager retail. That's the highest I would recommend. Obviously, shipping and taxes brings it over. Okay, that's fine. But I would not recommend buying this figure or ordering this figure for more than this. I would not recommend buying this figure for more than modern day retail. If the camera wants to focus. Come on, there you go. But until then, what you gonna do. Figure's nice though. Pose is great, looks great, colors are very appealing to me. Red and blue tickles the brain. But, yeah. With that all being said, I'll see you in the next video. This will be my last video for a bit, I believe. Maybe I'll get another figure soon, maybe not. We'll see what the future has in store for me. But yes, until then, thank you for watching. I hope you all take care, and see you next time. Goodbye.